5 seconds. Oh, not even. We're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today I'm with Robin Turlings. Hey, Robin, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about our interview today. Let's kick off. I like to start with just diving right into the deep end. Maybe if you don't mind telling people a little bit about Zero Emission Fund and what you guys are working on there.
Of course. So we started Zero Emissions Fund actually during COVID. I was running and listening to a podcast about climate tech and climate change. And one of the remarks of the speaker was you should put your money where your mouth is. And I've been investing for a long time, so I figured that makes sense. That's how we got started. So Zero Emissions Fund is a family fund which I run together with my wife. And we invest in climate tech and decarbonization startups around the world. We do that actively. We run a program. I'll get in much more detail. But we basically invest in the companies in climate tech and decarbonization that we feel are the best that we can discover.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you have a very kind of fascinating story, but let's maybe slow it down a little bit. I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, what you're working on specifically, and kind of like your history as well, how you landed here. So take me back maybe to your earliest entrepreneurial moment. You were, I think, 6 years old in France with your parents, and you made your first money, right? So what were, I mean, I got a bunch of little ones around the house here. I would love for them to have an outcome like that. So what were you doing, and what did that teach you about how the world actually works?
Well, to be clear, there was no deliberate plan there. So, no, I suppose I was basically bored in the morning when my parents were still sleeping. We were camping in the south of France, and there was like a little camping shop there where you could turn in bottles in return for 10 cents or something like that. And a lot of people in the camping would party at night, drink a lot of wine, leave their bottles on the side of the road. So I would wake up early, collect all the bottles, bring them to the camping store. And I think I made something around 80 guilders, which at the time to me was a huge amount of money. And yeah, I ended up buying a fishing pole, and I suppose that was my first venture.
Amazing. Well, I like that as a start. So boredom, I guess that's my takeaway. Get my kids to experience extreme boredom.
So,
and then by 12, you were on the street with a recorder earning real money. So I think by 17, you said you were buying stocks on the Amsterdam exchange. What was driving that? Like, was it your dad, your brother, both, or something inside of you that you just refused to, wait?
In hindsight, my parents. Again, there was no deliberate plan here. Like, I just kind of fell from one thing into another. But my parents are people who feel that you should try different things, and that kind of pushed us to discover ourselves. Specifically playing the recorder, again, kind of chance. I read a book about a homeless guy in Paris who was making money as a street musician. And in the Netherlands, where I'm from, we have something called King's Day. It actually was last week. It's a huge festival where people sell their stuff in the streets and everybody is dressing in orange. And everybody is out on the street selling stuff or making money in like small ways. So I figured, let's try the street musician thing. I played my recorder. I made around 12 guilders in about an hour, which again was a huge amount of money for me at the time. And from there, I was like, I'm just going to continue doing this. So I made kind of a career out of it. I first went to the local shopping center for a couple of months. And then I was like, no, I'm going to upgrade. So I went to the city center of the city where I was living, to the main street there, got a permit at some point, and yeah, made quite a substantial amount of money over a period of time. Actually, one time during Christmas, I probably made the highest hourly wage that I've ever made in my life, which to current currency would have been like 350 euros an hour.
So how old were you? How old were you at this point?
I started when I was 12. I stopped doing it around 17, 18, something like that. And I did it
Wow.
in, I mean, I had to go to school, right? So I did this in the weekends, not like during the week or anything.
And sorry, what instrument were you playing, or what were you doing on
I
this
think
trip?
it's called a recorder in English, like a flute.
You made $350 an hour
Yeah,
making playing the recorder?
that was one time only with Christmas. So this was
But
not on
still,
average. I would make like 10 to 15 guilders, which by current currency would be 10, 15 euros nowadays.
that's impressive. I like that. Cool. So then you did a master's in public policy, right? Because you
Yeah.
wanted to become the prime minister of the Netherlands. Can you like that's a wildly different path from where you ended up, right? So what did you believe back then about how change actually gets made, and when did that belief start to crack?
Oh, that's a really nice question. Well, I thought I could decide what my path was for a long time, probably 30s or something. Um, and I believe that if I knew what the direction was, I could put everyone in that same direction. That kind of made me go into politics. I was very convinced about my political beliefs and ideas. I became active in politics at 14 at the local political party in the place where I was living. And I've been doing that actually all the way until I left the Netherlands 15 years ago. After that, I kind of got out of politics because in a foreign country, usually you cannot be in a political party or it's very difficult. Where I live now, I cannot even understand a lot of stuff. So, no, but I do believe in general, and I think I still do that, even though I don't do it in politics. But I do think that if you believe in something, you should try do something about it. And I still do that, but now through investing.
Interesting. And then you spent the early part of your career inside Accenture,
Yeah.
ING, basically, the kind of the elite track of Dutch professional services. So, what did those years teach you that founders never learn, and what did they? I don't know, just yeah, like what did you walk away with in terms of lessons from there?
I'm not sure if founders never learn those things, because if you're a founder, if you're in B2B, hopefully at some point you get the same big customers and you will find out that way. But I think one of the main things that you learn at big companies is actually being very thorough and thinking through what you do. Don't just splash out random stuff, but it has to be part of something bigger that needs to all work together. You're a small part of a big entity, and yeah, you have to be able to collaborate with people. Usually, you specialize a lot more, so that's one. For some people, that's nice. I'm more of a generalist, but basically, being very professional, I learned at these big companies, at Accenture, at ING, and doing things the right way, the structured way. Something that I'm not sure if it's good or bad is that big companies are quite risk averse, almost the opposite of what we do in the startup world. Um, I think it's good to have seen that side of things too, and especially when your company grows and you have to think more long term, you have employees, then it's also becomes more important to have that type of skills. I learned a lot at these companies. I don't regret at all having been in that space.
So you took your first trip to China in 1997 when it was barely, opening up. So you've also said that that trip changed everything. So what did you see there that Western media wasn't, telling you? And how did that one experience reshape the next 25 years of your life?
Well, first of all, I don't remember Western media doing anything with China at the time. I mean, it was a very different time to begin with, right? We barely had internet, let alone YouTube and everything that we're doing right now. The most interactive thing we got was radio and TV, and that was via specific stations. And if they weren't interested in China, you never learned anything about the country. I went there with all the stereotypes in my head about the country, because that basically was all that I knew. and it was totally different. I think in terms of what changed me, it's still the most impressive journey I've ever made. I wanted to go back after 2 days, landing in Beijing, because it's the only time I've been homesick, but I was there for 2 days and I literally didn't speak to anybody because I didn't know how, because everything was in Chinese. Nobody did speak English yet. So I had a lonely planet, and that was my Bible to survive. Then after 2 days, I kind of learned how I could actually interact with people and get to understand them and myself. Started connecting with people, and it ended up being amazing. I mean, people are amazing everywhere, but that whole journey of a culture that's utterly different from where I came from, that still fascinates me also when I travel now.
And you convinced your wife to essentially leave the Netherlands and then move to Singapore on what was basically an adventure. So no company yet, no plan. What was the conversation actually like, and what were you afraid of?
Well, fortunately, I didn't need to convince her to come to the Netherlands. She it was basically a choice between me going to Berlin or her to the Netherlands, and she was quite excited about going to the Netherlands. But the Asia part took a little bit longer. Since that trip to China, I was fascinated by Asia, and I kind of decided that I wanted to live there one day. And gradually, she kind of grew to like that idea as well. And when we were 10 years together, we kind of discussed, like, there's always going to be a reason not to go. Maybe we should look at just going. So basically, I told my employer at the time, ING, that I was going to leave in October because that would be the moment that we were together for 10 years. And life has a way of, if you're looking for stuff, somehow things start popping up. So there came a job opening at my wife's job at the time in Singapore, and we figured, okay, that's Asia, right direction, let's go for it.
So your dad ran his own business. Your brother had been an entrepreneur for 7 years before you took the leap. With that family pattern, why did it take you until your mid-30s to finally jump?
Well, the age part is I studied very long, or as my mother says, very detailed. Uh, so that's part of the reason I was later. I didn't start my career thinking I would become an entrepreneur. I kind of stumbled into that too. In Singapore, I participated in Startup Weekend Singapore, which is a global organization. They organize this everywhere around the world. Basically, in 54 hours, you work with people that you've never met before on a pitch that you have in your mind. You make a business plan, maybe a prototype, and you pitch it to a couple of judges. I did that a few months after I came to Singapore, and we ended up winning the third prize with that. And I had so much fun doing that I was like, I actually had a contract offer from ING to come back in at the Singapore office. But then I was like, I already left home and already started over. Let's try a different career too. So that's how I got started on my own.
That's wild. And that app, right? The one third prize. I think it was like an online financial planner. You spent something like 2 years building it, but then it died, right? So walk me through the moment you knew it was over.
Oh, that was very clear. We were having lunch with myself and my two co-founders, and they were basically like, we don't think this is going to work. We are going to get out, so you can either choose to go continue by yourself or not. Obviously, I kind of knew that in the back of my head already for quite a long time too, but I felt like maybe tomorrow it will work, or the next week, or the week after. My next company, the Startup Buddy, I set up with Danny, with the same co-founder of the first company. Long story short, we got stuck very long on a trajectory of something we thought was a good idea, but the market didn't think so. And we kept on trying to make it work. And yeah, in the end, we just had to give up. It's as simple as that.
And you've said that the core mistake was trying to do something in an Asian context that would,
Yeah.
that would have worked in Europe. So what specifically did you get wrong, and what would you tell a Western founder landing in Asia today?
Well, I tell this to a lot of founders coming from other parts of the world going to Asia. Basically, in Europe, there was regulation about financial advice, meaning that in Europe, you can not advise somebody and at the same time get a referral fee from, for example, the bank or the insurance company, because it's considered conflict of interest. So financial advisors have to get paid by the customer that they are advising. And that was something that was very normal in the Netherlands, where I was from. I'd just been working in ING. And I thought that system was also better and more transparent. But the reality in Singapore was that the entire market worked on referral fees, and all our customers perceived financial advice as free. I mean, they were paying a percentage of whatever they were buying from the insurer, but they perceived it as free, so we couldn't compete with that.
And then out of that failure came the startup buddy, right? The realization that there are 5,000 founders for every one who gets into a top accelerator, and the other, whatever, 4,800 or something, 50 figure it out alone. So when did you see that gap, and what made you think, you could fix it online?
We got to work with quite a lot of startup founders doing the first idea already, because they were always looking for funding and approaching us about that. And also for the first company, we had tried to get in a couple of accelerators ourselves, but we didn't get in a lot of times because we weren't in the right industry or the right stage or some other reason. And that kind of frustrated us. So we were like, okay, there are so many people who are looking for some help to do this, because building your own company, no matter how brilliant you are, is always going to be hard. But there's actually a very small group of people actually getting this support. Nowadays, it's slightly different. Since then, a lot has changed, and there's a lot more programs online and stuff like that. But at the time, in all of Singapore, there were around 5,000 startups, and there was maybe 100 spots for an accelerator. So the other 4,900 had to kind of figure it out themselves, like we did. And then we were like, is there another way to switch this around? And that's why we decided to set up the Startup Buddy, to basically build a platform where anybody could come and learn the basics of building their business. And that way grow faster than they could do by themselves, basically get across the valley of death. And when it really took off was when we went to Jakarta, Danny and me. Then we also discovered that the demand for that outside Singapore is still a very developed and rich country where you have a lot of resources. But in Indonesia, there was almost nothing in a huge country. So people were super happy with whatever support they could get. And then from there, we focused on that, and it went really well.
And so now you're the managing partner at Zero Emissions Fund, right? So what was the conversation, the data point, or the moment that made you say, this is the only thing that matters now?
Like I said, I was listening to a podcast from Mr. Mark Carney, who's now the Prime Minister in Canada, but at the time he was a very active climate ambassador for the UN. I thought that talk was very inspiring. So that kind of got me started. And we set up a program using the Startup Buddy platform that I owned anyway, which was kind of passive. I have been investing for a long time, like ever since I was doing the street musician thing. But this was always on the side. Like I spent time on it, but it was still out of hand hobby. And then I was like, maybe I should start switching this around. I've been investing through quite a few VCs, some really good ones, but some other ones that I was like, okay, I'm not so sure why you would be doing this better than I can myself. And then we were like, okay, we want to focus more on this. We actually have this platform. We have been in the startup space for a very long time. We basically think we can do this much better than what's already there. So that's how we made this zero emissions from something more passive in something much more active. And now we are running our first cohort to be able to do an investment by September. We have had 130 companies in the first phase of the program. It's an up or out program. And yeah, we're super excited with all the companies that we're coming across.
You're betting hard that the US has far less impact on global climate technology than people think. So that's kind of the opposite of what almost everyone in the space says, right? So what do you see that the consensus is missing?
Well, I think people are seeing two different things. A lot of the really good ideas and a lot of the very good entrepreneurs are in the US and still are in the US. But we have been talking to very many of those who are actually considering to expand somewhere else as the US, because the topic is not that friendly at the moment. And they are considering to move somewhere else because that downturn in terms of attention, money being spent, invested, innovation, that's, as far as we can tell, primarily in the US. In China, Asia, Europe, that trend is not at all there. If anything, because of all the political turmoil, it's even more getting more hot, the climate tech space at the moment. So yeah, initially when there was all these changes in policies, everybody around the world was a little bit scared, like this is going to implode everything. I don't see that at all.
And then you moved the operation from Singapore to Bulgaria, right? So, that's not where most climate VCs set up shop. Why Bulgaria? Why now? And what does that tell us about where the climate tech action is shifting to?
It doesn't tell you anything about where climate tech is shifting. It only tells you something about me. We moved here because after COVID, we simply wanted to be closer to family. COVID was really rough in terms of not being able to go to our elderly parents for 2-3 years. So we felt that we didn't want that to happen again, and we wanted to be more in the neighborhood, even though we're not like 20 kilometers away. But having said that, Europe has a lot of innovation and a lot of action in climate tech and decarbonization. Some countries more than others. The EU is very much promoting this topic. There's a lot of support, possibilities to grow, etc. And since the EU, it's not one country, but it's one economic area, it doesn't really matter where you are effectively on a day-to-day basis. So in that sense, it's very good to be here.
Interesting. So the ZEF runs free, online, open to anyone cohorts, right? So any state, any country, any industry. Most VCs would call that economically insane, right? Well, why does the math work for you when it wouldn't work for them?
Because we invest with our own money. We are investing our own time. And where we think we will get the upside is by doing the investment together with our network of investors. So we plan to do an investment of around 75,000 euros at the end of the program in 1 to maybe 3 companies. But we get support for this program by now of around 55 other investors that are either specialized in climate tech or have an interest in climate tech. And if they do, they probably do much larger tickets if they join any of the companies that make it to the end of our program. So we're investing a lot of our resources into doing this. But if they do a $3 million ticket in the same company, we kind of already earn it back.
Interesting. Cool. So your accelerator graduates can get capital, right, from ZF and partner investors. So can you walk me through what a founder actually gets, like money, mentors, network, and where ZEF's edge is versus, let's say, I don't know, like a Y Combinator or a climate pledge fund or something like that?
Well, Y Combinator is the outlier. By the way, I think Y Combinator's edge is simply numbers. In the end, if you get 5 million applications, or I don't know what the number is, you should be able to find good companies. But Y Combinator is probably the one, or maybe one of the 2-3 outliers around the world that can do that. Our program works in 3 stages. So we have a beginning stage, which is very similar to any other accelerator. We help startups basically with classes online through our platform, which is a learning environment. Basically, they learn to do things like marketing, setting up legal work, building a team, how to get product market fit, that type of stuff that you would find in many other accelerators. Then at the end of that stage, we looked, okay, who are the ones that we feel are best fit for the program and are mature enough? Because the second stage is growth. So in the current stage that we are in, the companies that are still there, which are 43 at the moment, out of the 132 in the first round, they have to show growth within 3 months. And so we have asked them, where are you now? And we'll ask that again by the end of this phase, which is in July. And we expect the companies to see either a lot of technical improvement or revenue improvement or some other kind of serious traction, which tells us how good are you in your execution. We already looked at the idea in the first stage. Then for the final stage, it will be investment. Only 5 to maximum 10 companies will go to that stage. So we still need to drop a lot of companies. And there we'll do due diligence on these companies. To see if they're really as good as by then we think they are. Now, if we would only do that with the 2 of us, we would only be able to judge IT companies or finance companies and a couple of other things, because that's where our background is. But because we do this with a lot of mentors in our network, with a lot of investors who have different types of experience and skills, we can look at a lot more companies that otherwise we wouldn't be able to touch. So they help us basically do due diligence on these companies as well. And together we come to a conclusion, okay, these are the best ones. And along the way, companies don't have to do a lot. So it's not like a lot of other accelerators where you might need to spend 1 or 2 or 3 days of your week being in the accelerator. We want it to be the other way around. You focus on your business. We'll just track some stuff. We'll ask you some stuff. We'll offer you things like the mentoring and the classes and stuff, but they are not required to join because we want you to focus on building your company and nothing else. But we follow you for a long time. And because of that, we should be able to make a very good judgment if we want to invest in you or not.
Okay, so maybe help me land the plane, Robin. We're getting near the end of the interview here. So 5 years out, what does Zero Emissions Fund need to have produced for you to, call it a success? And, what's the one founder, one company, or maybe one technology you'd bet your reputation on right now?
Well, first of all, Zero Emissions Fund in 5 years from now, I hope by then we have a first exit from the first investment we'll be doing this year. I hope we'll have done 4 or 5 rounds, because we'll be starting a new cohort this October. So we plan to do this every year. By now, we have already collected 200 entrepreneurs from applications, 130 that were in the first phase of the first cohort. Companies can rejoin every year again. So 5 years from now, if we would have a worldwide community of dedicated mentors, investors, and startups working on climate tech and decarbonization problems, that would be a frankly fantastic outcome. Then in terms of the companies in our program are wildly different. We have a company from Pennsylvania, US. They are making gasoline that will be available at gasoline stations probably in 6 months from now, at even cheaper cost than regular gasoline. And this was before the war. So they're competitive, that's what I'm saying. I think that's super interesting. So they're making this gasoline out of wood chips from all the forests that used to be producing wood for making paper in the US. A lot of paper mills used to be in that area. There's a company that recycles low value plastic. So think of like the plastic bags that you use for your vegetables and fruits and stuff. That type of plastic is very difficult to collect and to recycle. They are actually breaking it down in its chemical components using plasma heat, and can from there produce things like carbon black, which is used in car tires, graphene, which is used in very efficient batteries. So they're basically able to make it a raw material for new production of new products. There's a lot more. We have software solutions, fintech solutions, so it's all over the place.
Maybe share where the website is, also where if you're blogging or writing, Robin, maybe on LinkedIn or wherever it might be. And then I'll bring this one to a close.
In general, go to LinkedIn. That's where we are most active on Zero Emissions Fund via LinkedIn. Just put it in the search. We have a website, obviously, zeroemissionsfund.vc. And you can always contact me too if you have questions. I'm on LinkedIn, so just type in my name, and generally I respond, just not the same day.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I see there's almost 20 people synced in and listening to our live stream. So thank you all for checking in, and for everyone else in the future. Until next time, thank you, Robin. Really appreciate it. Just hang back maybe 1 minute. I'll bring the stream to an end.
Great.